Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing a card that features ways to make your stenciling stand out, and this card also features brand new products from Pinkfresh Studio that are available today. I am going to be using this new framed art stamp and coordinating die set. This stamp set is adorable, but check out the dies. I absolutely love this. There are a couple of kind of framed art pieces that you can stamp these images into. And then there are two dies that cut out a couple of the images in the stamp set. There's some sentiments and then that floral pattern. And you're going to see how I use this. I'm using this set not only in today's card, but I am going to share a second card tomorrow featuring this set as well. And so I'm doing actually all of my stamping and all of my stenciling for both cards. I'm starting with the little orange stamp and I'm stamping it in some Misty Coast ink. Now, I initially stamped this in some black ink and I thought that felt a little harsh, and I'm glad I just went ahead and re-stamped using the Misty Coast. This is going to give me a softer outline and kind of change up the look of a stamp. Now I'm starting out with the stencil set here. This coordinates with this framed art set, and I have the little floral piece at the top of this orange stem masked off. And the first way to kind of make your stenciling stand out is to do a little bit of shading. Now on an image that's this small, I like to use a smaller blending brush to bring in a little bit darker color around the edges. Once I have the first stencil colored in, I'm going to move my stencil over and start again with that peach fuzz ink over the entire image and bringing in some Sunkissed around the edges to kind of deepen and darken that up. Now I'm moving my way through all of these orange images and wiping off my stencil between each one, and then I'm going to move on to the second stencil in this set. Now there are several kind of stencil areas on this set, so each corner kind of coordinates with one of the stamps or some designs. And for this one, this is the greenery. So I'm starting out by adding some eucalyptus to the entirety of the greenery. And for the detail layer of the greenery, I am using spruce tips, so a little bit darker green to bring in that detail. Now my fourth stencil is kind of the little dot details on these oranges, and for this I'm using Clementine ink. You can see I'm not even holding this in place with anything, I'm just moving it over and holding it in place with my hand. Now I didn't feel like there was enough contrast between the two orange images. They just looked a little blobby. So another way that you can kind of make your stenciling stand out is to come in with a darker marker or even a colored pencil to darken up some very specific areas and then create that shadow between the two layers of oranges. I used the coordinating die to die cut all the oranges, and now I am die cutting my pieces for this framed art. And it includes not only kind of the canvas area of the art, but also the frame area. And so I'm die cutting the frame from some white cardstock, and I'm also die cutting it from some matte gold cardstock. And I'm gonna layer these up to create some dimension. I'll also die cut the little string that this framed art hangs from some kind of neutral gray cardstock, and I'll assemble all of these together to make this really adorable framed art, hence the name. Now also included in this stencil set are kind of some of these abstract paintbrush stroke effects, and I thought this would be a fun way to create a background for this little orange image that I'm going to be using. So I'm starting out with the large kind of brush stroke image, and I'm placing it onto my canvas here of my art, and I'm blending with coral reef ink. Now for that first layer, I used a really light hand, but for the second layer, I'm going to use the same ink, but I'm going to go in with a heavier hand and a darker amount of ink to kind of create contrast between these two layers. So if you don't have a whole lot of ink colors at your disposal, you can use the same ink color with a heavier hand to create a variation of color. And that's another way to kind of step up your stenciling, especially if you're limited on the things that you have. Now for this next layer, they are smaller brushstroke pieces, and what I decided to do for this was use a metallic gold ink. So this is an easy way to step up your stencil, is to add some metallic areas with either a gold ink, or you could put embossing ink into these areas and then pour embossing powder over the top. Now I set that with my heat tool because that gold ink is a pigment ink and I don't want it to smudge. And I brought in a little bit of Waterfall ink around the edges of this canvas. I just felt like there was too much white and I wanted a little bit of differentiation between that pink and the white background. So now that I have my stenciling done on my canvas, I am going to start layering up the die cuts here. Now I die cut a couple extra layers of these pieces to kind of create some additional dimension. So behind the canvas, I placed an additional layer of cardstock, and for the frame pieces, I'm stacking up 2 of the white cardstock pieces at the top and 2 at the bottom, and then I'm topping that off with a layer of the matte gold cardstock. And that's just going to make this really kind of build up the frame and give it a little dimension, a little bit of weight on the card. Now there are 2 sizes of these canvases in the die set. This is the larger size, but there is a smaller size as well. So you can see I'm just kind of building all this up. And once I have all the pieces in place on the front, I'm going to turn this over and add the little picture hanger to the back, the little string that this would be suspended from on the wall. I'm just using some liquid glue for that. Now for the card front, I decided to embellish it a little bit with the dotted Scallops cover plate from Pinkfresh Studio. This is one of my favorite. It gives total mermaid vibes, but I thought it was a really good pairing for this little orange image and the art that we're creating. I also die cut some of the Curvy leaves die cut. This is one of my favorite dies from Pinkfresh Studio. I use it all the time, seriously, in gold, in vellum. So I die cut a couple of those Curvy leaves and I'm adding those onto the frame and I'm tucking them behind where I will place the orange. Now I did create an embossed sentiment. This sentiment is from that same framed art stamp set. I heat embossed it using white embossing powder onto some vellum, and I'll place my orange onto this frame using some foam adhesive. There's actually a double layer of foam adhesive. There's a layer behind the orange, and then I added the sentiment and then added another layer of foam adhesive. Once I have my little miniature art piece completed, I'm going to place this onto the card front using some foam adhesive, and I'm going to get that into place. And once I have that in place, I'm going to mat this onto some ivory cardstock. So I'm just creating a little bit of contrast between this and the white card base that I'm using. I didn't add any foam adhesive behind those 2 layers. And I'll finish this off by adding this onto my card base. Again, just using some tape runner adhesive so there's not too much bulk. I know I like big cards, I can't deny it, but I felt like this one had enough going on as it was. So I finished off my card by adding some metallic gold pearls from Pinkfresh Studio. I'm just using my dual-tipped embellishment tool to pick those up and add some liquid glue behind them. I've already placed them onto my card, and I did add one of those metallic gold pearls at the top of that picture hanger as well. So that completes my card for today with a few tips for stepping up your stenciling game by adding some metallics, adding some little details with some markers, and some shading with different colors of ink. I hope you enjoyed this project today, and I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, I will have links to the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube, so if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. You can also head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I'll have that linked below as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, a complete list of supplies, as well as some information on a blog hop that's happening today celebrating this brand new Kindness in Bloom release from Pinkfresh Studio. So head on over there to enter for your chance to win some prizes. Thanks again so much for being here today. Thanks for watching. I'm so glad you're here. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you don't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. And I would love for you to give this video a thumbs up. Thanks again, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.